Hi coaches, I'm Melanie Stevens. Today's webinar series will be with Tina Samara about college knowledge. Tina is the owner and founder of Transition Coach for Athletes. On the WTA Tour, she reached a career high ranking of 223 in doubles. In college, she won 3 NCAA's national team championships and was the #1 ranked NCAA doubles team for the University of Georgia in 1995. Now, I'll turn this over to our presenter. Thank you so much for being with us today, Tina.
Thanks for having me. I want to just thank everyone for taking time out of their day to watch this presentation. It's my first webinar presentation, so be kind. But yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the current climate, obviously with this pandemic and how that's impacting college athletes, in particular tennis in this case, but and why I started this company in the last few months called Transition Coach for Athletes. So this presentation is going to be basically about just giving you information about how this process works, how I would work with a client, and why I think it's important to have some of this information in order to find the best fit for your student. So here's the challenges, why did I start this business? I noticed as a coach that there was a real struggle with my athletes to balance the demands of the sport and performance in school. And there was a lot of anxiety around it and depression. And, I just kind of felt like these kids weren't enjoying the experience like I felt I had many years ago. So I was trying to tap into why this was the case and come up with ways to maybe help these athletes during these transitions. The other thing that I'm trying to support as well is trying to really find the right fit for athletes. It's not going to be about how many kids I put at top 10 D1 programs or things like that. It's going to be how many athletes did I place that are having a great experience and are going to leave that experience with great things to say about college athletics and the education that you get along with it. And, again, going back to just some of the things that these kids are dealing with in today's world, comparing themselves to other athletes, whether it be through negative thoughts and, with the social media going on all the time and there's just never a break. I think these are the things that are impacting and enhancing these issues that we're seeing in today's world. Statistically, here's just some interesting stats about female athletes. You can see 92% less likely to get involved in drugs if they're involved in athletics, 80% less likely to get pregnant, 3 times more likely to graduate. Overall athletes, the statistics say that 95% of Fortune 500 companies competed in high school athletics. And then again, back to some of the issues surrounding that is just how many negative thoughts that generally people have a day, which was really surprising to read that stat, how high that is. And then again, here, just a little bit of overall stat for depression in today's world. And, obviously that we're seeing a lot of negative impact of depression and deaths involved with suicide and things like that, where sports can be a great way to decrease those numbers. So this company, again, I'm working globally. It's not just in the US, it's any athletes anywhere in the world, and just trying to, again, the 2 arms of the company are helping them navigate all these challenges that I touched on in terms of balancing the expectations and the comparisons and the stigmas that come along with it, while still trying to maximize their performance on the court. And this business also, my goal is to help athletes even when they're currently enrolled in college if they're having issues, because as some of us know that have played collegiately, there are a lot of resources in college, but I found that a lot of these kids aren't using the resources on their own campuses for various reasons. Maybe it's just too close to home, or there's a lack of trust in whether it's going to be confidential, and maybe they just want to seek an outside voice that they don't feel is connected in any way. that's not obviously their family as well. And hopefully I can help them, tackle some of these issues and help them maximize performance and keep their focus on the right things. So there's kind of a few stages involved in what I do. Initially, there's a free assessment, so I would sit down either in person or on Zoom like this and talk to the family and the kid about their goals and their vision. That's a really important part of this process, because we want to make sure that we're on the same page. Obviously, it's always okay to have schools that you're really like your dream schools, but we need to keep some reality checks in there as well, so that there's not an expectation that can't be met. And the beauty of doing this on my own and having my own business is, I'm certainly not ever going to take a client because of the money or anything like that. It's going to be making sure that I feel like I can help them get to reach the goals they have in terms of the school, the type of school they want, both athletically and academically. And that there you'll see step 2 is going to the different divisions. So in D1, NCAA D1, this is a generalization, and with the UTRs, obviously it's not exact. There are kids that have had lower UTRs going to D1 and vice versa. It's not only, your right fit isn't only going to be based on your playing level, but this is sort of a nice little guideline for generally what your UTRs need to look like to be looking at the different divisions. And, I will tell you that having come from the D1 world as a player and a coach, I was really impressed with all the opportunities out there. And that's part of this as well, is you don't have to be the rock star player from your state to possibly get an opportunity to play collegiately. You might not get a full ride if you're, an average player, but you certainly might get some financial help and enjoy a great experience. So the different divisions, if some of you may or may not know, D1 is all athletically based. Finances are all based on your athletic performance. At D2, it's a combination of the two. D3 is all academic based money, so it's all dependent on how you are academically. Although, of course, different schools want different level players. And then junior college is a 2-year pathway where for kids that maybe want to improve their grades before trying to get to that school that their dream school to finish their degree at, or for kids that want to improve their level so that they can get to that better school at one of the other divisions. And then NAIA is, pretty similar to the NCAA D1, D2, D3, other than generally it's just smaller towns, smaller schools, but amazing opportunities as well. And I know quite a few kids that have had fantastic experiences at that level. And again, I really want to stress to everyone and to any clients I work with that D1 is not better than NAIA, D3 is not better than JUCO. It really dependent on what your needs are and where you're at, and both academically and athletically. Then step 3 would be just getting all that paperwork figured out, eligibility, NCAA eligibility center. If you're overseas, it's going to be visas and all the international paperwork that comes along with it, getting your transcripts translated if needed, all that stuff, which is something that we take care of for you or are heavily involved with. And then the big thing that I think maybe a lot of companies say they do, but they probably don't do that often, is just to try to really maintain a relationship with my clients post-placement, whether it just be a check-in call or a chat about a great match you had in the weekend. And I think that's, again, the beauty of the size of my business and the size I want to keep it to where it is going to be very personalized, and I'm not going to kids aren't going to get lost in the mix. When you sign up with TC4A, you're going to speak to me from the first phone call to the last phone call with nobody in between in terms of anyone from this side of things. A little bit on my background. So I played collegiately a couple of years ago. You can tell a few years ago from those outfits at University of Georgia. Had a great experience, obviously huge tradition there. So I was very fortunate to sneak my way onto that team. And then after college, I did give playing a try. I played for 3 years, was fortunate enough again to be born in Norway and Norwegian mom and played for Norway, which, we lost quite a few of our athletes to skiing over there. So I snuck on that Fed Cup team, which is a really, really fun opportunity that I highly recommend for anyone that has an opportunity like that, which college tennis, I think, is the most similar to it if you don't come from a small skiing country where you can play on their tennis team. I gave golf a go for 3 years. That's me playing a tournament. The one tournament I won, the New York State Public Links, obviously in New York at Bethpage, which was really humbling experience. Golf, I gained a whole new appreciation for that sport through that experience as well. And then for 11 years, I was a D1 college coach at 4 different schools as a head coach and 1 year as an assistant, from Power 5 schools to mid-majors. So I kind of feel like I got a really good experience in terms of different budgets, different challenges at the different schools based on budgets and facilities and things like that. And then now to where I'm at, which I'm basically calling a boutique recruitment service. I'm not trying to turn this into the IMG of recruiting. I feel that, I can keep this really small and really personalized. And here are some of the sports I've already worked with and will obviously continue to work with. The 2 sports that I won't be involved with would be football, basketball. So I feel like I've been on every side of it. So I've been a player, I've been a coach, and I've been on the recruiting side for the last 1.5 years as well, which I think is somewhat unique. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but there aren't that many. And because of that, I feel like I really understand the concerns coming from all different directions. I know what coaches are looking for. I know their concerns with the recruiting services. And because of my 11 years, I feel I've had a lot of time to create pretty good relationships with coaches. And I think that's an important part of this business, is having good relationships and honest ones. And one thing that I'm selling is just really full transparency. I'm not going to call Stanford with a girl or boy with a 10 UTR and expect, that to work out. Or I'm not trying to sell. This isn't a sales job for me. It's a lot more about just finding a place to have a great opportunity. Here's one of my kids from my first head coaching job back in the day. She's actually now living in Sydney, Australia. She's from Colombia, South America. I was lucky enough to meet up with her last winter, our winter, Australia summer, as you can see. She's now, really successful in the banking world. I think a big part of why I even enjoyed college coaching was the relationships with so many of my players. And that's why I think this was a really nice transition for me, because I'm still able to enjoy what I really enjoyed about the coaching, which of course was the teaching the tennis and competing. But so much of it for me, was the relationships and seeing them move on. And, I have players that are married with kids and that one just finished law school last week. And I think that's, again, it's all about relationships, and that's very important to the foundation of what I'm doing. So that's essentially what I do. I have a Facebook page. I'd love anyone that's interested to join. I'm available anytime for questions, free assessment, obviously, as well. I hope I can help some of you in the future with players or answering questions or anything that you might want to know about this side of sport. So thanks again. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Thank you so much for the great content, Tina. We really appreciate you taking the time to being here with us today. We had a few questions coming in from coaches, and if you don't mind, I'm going to ask it to you right now. The first one is, what makes a great college recruiting video?
That's a tough one. Again, in the most perfect world, which we clearly don't live in at the moment, it would be actually seeing a player live. But as we know, for this reason, and obviously kids from overseas, that can't always happen depending on a lot of variables. So the next best thing that coaches want to see is real live match play. So a tournament match, stick a GoPro on the fence and just film it uncut. you certainly can then go back and edit out ball pickup and things like that. But I would also caution not to edit too much of some of that as well, because I know I learned the hard way through recruiting as a coach to watch body language between points. And after you miss a ball in the bottom of the net, how are you reacting to that, and how is that impacting your behavior moving forward, or your results moving forward? So I think the seasoned coaches are going to look at as much at that as they are at your forehands and backhands, because at the end of the day, it's how well do you compete. There's nothing wrong with videos showing more technical forehand, backhand. Make sure you show everything. Don't not show volleys if you don't like the volley. That's going to be a pretty big red flag. And just try to make sure you're filming from an angle that shows the ball flight as well, because if you're seeing a real close-up of someone's shot and you can't see where the ball's going, or if it's landing inside the service line every time, that's going to also put some questions up in that coach's head about where these balls actually landing. So I'm fortunate we didn't have video when I was going to school, so we didn't have to worry about that. But yeah, I would say generally that's what you need to make sure. And it's nothing wrong also if you want to get fancy and say where each different thing is. So forehands are from the beginning to 5 minutes, backhand, so if coaches want to fast forward, anything you could do to make it quicker and easier, I think is going to work in your favor.
Great, yeah. Okay, so the next one is, when should players start the recruiting process?
Yeah, so I think before a few months ago, this was a pretty simple answer. I would say, right before their start of their year 11 is a good time. You can start sooner. I mean, honestly, if a kid signs up with me sooner, it's more time that I get to know the family, and it gives me more time. But, likely if you started at year 9 and you're a 8 UTR, who knows at 11th grade if you're going to be an 11 UTR, so what schools we would potentially be looking at. You can always assume a little bit of the trajectory, but it's a tough one. I don't think it's necessary. It doesn't change the price, so at the end of the day, you're just getting, this could be good or bad, you're getting me for a longer period of time, so it depends how long you want to communicate with me. But in this period of time with the virus and everything, as many people probably have seen, there's a lot of questions about what the NCAA is going to do with sports in general. Olympic sports are certainly in more danger than the big revenue football, basketball. So that's changing the climate a little bit. So I would say in this climate and going forward, it's maybe a little bit earlier than, I would say a little earlier than before, just to give us time to really see, what schools are cutting programs or what are holding off on recruiting. And that has a lot, that's all up in the air right now. Obviously, if you're a top player, then we know the top programs aren't going to be cutting the programs, but if you're not, that's going to be, I know a top 50 school that I found out last night, they're just being told to hold off for the moment. They're not being, I don't think they're cutting the program, but they're just trying to, manage what's going on with the current kids, and they're not looking forward quite yet. So.
Okay, and that actually brings us to our next question, which you already touched on it a little bit, and it's, what changes are happening at the moment in the recruiting process because of COVID-19?
Yeah, so again, it's just, there's so many unknowns. I'm reading all kinds of things. There are ADs that are apparently, some of them trying to use the excuse of this virus to get rid of programs so that they have to spend less money on some of these sports. I'm confident that for the most part, we're going to be okay, because I think there's enough people in good positions that value what these Olympic sports produce in terms of people, athletes, successful people after they graduate and that kind of thing, and the importance of having a well-rounded campus and certainly not just focused on the revenue sports. But we all know money drives things, so it's a constantly changing. It's a day-to-day thing. So I'm every day monitoring what's going on, speaking to my friends that are in college coaching. I'm speaking to directors in college, at universities, anyone I can really get any information from. And hopefully it sounds like we're starting to open up some places all over the country. And if we can continue to keep this at bay or not getting worse, maybe we'll know a little bit more in the next few months.
Okay. And do you know if how are college sports right now? Are they open until the rest of the year? Do you know what's going on there?
So essentially, the 2020 recruiting class, that'll be the 2021 year will have seniors coming back potentially. That's up to the seniors. So some seniors aren't going to come back because maybe they have already secured a job, but certainly in today's climate, jobs aren't really, there's not a ton of open jobs at the moment. So I think a lot of kids are going to choose to come back. But when you choose to come back, you also have the issue of you have to be a student. So they have to enroll in grad school, or if they haven't finished their degree, they're going to finish their degree. So you're going to have the top programs, the biggest budget programs carrying rosters of like, normally you have to have a limit of 8. They're going to carry rosters of maybe 12. So they're going to have freshmen coming in and seniors coming back. It's going to be really interesting in some ways competitively how that's going to work. I know I coached on the women's side and had 8 girls on scholarship, and that was hard enough. So I can't even imagine trying to keep 12 happy. So, but it's only that year. So going forward, the juniors, they're allowed to use another year as well, but the coach will then have to not recruit at the They're only going to allow a max of 8 scholarships again. So you have to decide, are you going to retain kids for an extra year, or you're going to let them go and bring in a new kid? And that's going to be very school by school basis. Administrations are probably going to be having a lot of conversations with their coaches. But, currently, nothing's going on. There's no competition. There's, and depending on where these kids are from, some are probably able to practice and some aren't. But hopefully that will change shortly as well. But I know recruiting's still going on for the most part. Again, some schools are pausing it a little bit, but certainly for everything I'm seeing and hearing, it's somewhat business as usual with a little bit of a slower pace.
Okay, great. So our last question is, why TC4A versus other companies? Why should they choose your company?
Well, again, because I've been on all sides and spent so many years doing these things, I really, number one, I think having this arm of the business that is not just about college placement, but it's about quality of life, mental health, and a big part of that, I know from my own experience and from teammates, but thankfully not from my own experience, but how miserable a student athlete can be even on a full ride at a top school. So that's, again, I'm very aware and have seen it firsthand that that's not what makes people have a great experience. So number one, when I'm speaking to these families, again, as much as I'm going to offer full transparency, there might be some tough conversations with the parents, because we all know often the parents have expectations of their kid going to a certain school at a certain level because of various things, including probably have spent thousands and thousands of dollars to get them to the level where they could go to a school like that. But is that going to make their kid happy? And in the long term, is that going to be something that they look back at and realize was a big mistake? And, there's going to be parents that probably will say, too bad, we don't like what you have to say, and that's fine. Then I don't have to hold that on my shoulders if that's what ends up happening, and hopefully it doesn't. But so I think this company is a little bit more holistic in terms of, it's not just about the numbers of this, how many kids I place and what level I place them at, but it's going to be a lot more about the big picture. And then again, I think very rarely do you have somewhere where you're going to speak to me the entire process. Usually it's someone answering the questions, give me your details, then they pass that kid on to me, and then I pass that kid on to someone else when it's admissions time. And I'm potentially going to build this relationship with this family for a few years, just me and them. And anyone that I bring on board, and I've had some conversations with some really good friends of mine that might want to join my company, anyone that joins the company has to have played or coached at the collegiate level. So I'm not going to be bringing any kind of administrative assistants on, or so if you were to join my company, you would onboard that kid and you would have that kid from start to finish.
Very well. I was actually a college player myself, so I know how the whole process is. As an international student, there's so much involved. So it is very nice, definitely, to have only one person that you go to. The company I came with was from Brazil, and I did have many people that I talked to. It was a very good company, but I can definitely see the value of having this one person that you are working with throughout the whole process. So that's very nice.